Welcome to another episode of the Product Leader Podcast. I am super excited to be here tonight with Salem Smith. He is the head of product. Salem, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you very much, Brennan. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you. Do you want to do a quick introduction for yourself?
Sure. My name is Salem. I'm currently the head of product at the Curalate. Before that, I was the chief of product at the biggest e-commerce company out of Africa. And a lot of my 8 years of my career was spent at Huawei Technologies, where I wore different hats, from being a product manager up until being a group senior product manager. So currently, I work across 5 verticals, and I run about 7 products. I lead a 20-man PM org, which is huge. And I'm definitely all for impacting products that drives people's happiness and definitely helps them to live better lives.
That's awesome, man. Well, hanging out with you on Twitter, I can tell this is going to be a phenomenal conversation. At the end of the call, we will talk about where people can reach you, but I just have to say, everybody needs to follow this man on Twitter. Definitely connect with him.
Sure.
But yeah, let's jump in. So, I've been in product for about 8 months, and what I found is that as I was researching product management, I had this idea that from a founder of a company. He said, "Go be a product manager if you want to be a founder," but I didn't really know what it was. And as I've looked around, I've seen it defined differently everywhere. So how do you define product management?
Yes, you're very correct, Brian. Product management definitely differs from company to company. But personally, also my definition of product management has evolved, and currently I define product management as the art of building the right products for the right markets in the right manner, and definitely for the right reasons, to solve the right problems. So it is really all about doing the right things in this regard. Of course, we can always go down into saying, is that intersection of UX, technology, and business? I'm sure you've heard of that. But for me, I like to look at product management as a coaching spot. A product manager is a coach that definitely enables the team members to definitely do their best work. So this is really how I define product management.
Man, that's awesome. I've never heard it defined like that. And I especially love that you talk about coaching as a product manager. I come from a retail background of 17 years leading high-performing teams in brick and mortar retail. And so,
Wow.
Breaking into product, it was really hard to get the role because people think traditional retail background doesn't know anything about product management or technology. But what I found as I got in the role is it was just leadership and coaching and interactions and influence. Can you talk about how do you play the coaching piece how do you connect coaching with product management? Can you go a little further in there?
Yes, awesome question. So coaching in product management is all about building the mindset. You already have a fantastic team. So all you need to do is definitely build the right mindset, the right mental models to help them do their best work. So my hack is all the way from sourcing the right talent. You need to source the right talent, ensure that they're generalists, they're end-to-end talents. They can do their job. They can do what they say they could do, and even a bit further than that. Now they're in your org. You need to identify. Their trends, how they're able to do this work, and definitely encourage them, build their mindsets around towards a bias for action. Bias for action is one of the most important things that product managers should build into their teams. This definitely drives autonomy, helps your team to make mistakes and iterate faster, and definitely everyone has a fantastic product. So this is how I really imagine coaching.
Man, I love that. Let me ask you just a question. It's kind of a random question, but what I've noticed in my short career so far is that, just like in retail and sales, if you bring a competitive attitude and a fun and high energy attitude, everybody on the team, you have this idea of introverts and the dev team just wants to be by themselves and code. And that's not at all it. People love teams and people love being on high performing teams. But what I found is that you become a high performer and then you kind of get comfortable and then you kind of dip a little bit and you go back up. And it's kind of like a roller coaster. Yeah. Have you experienced that at all? And how do you maintain more of a steady feature delivery?
Maintaining a steady feature delivery, I like to say it's a bug and not a feature. In the sense that as much as there will always be trials and eyes, it is also very important to learn, because there are definitely learning curves, right? Every time, even for the best of us, there are times when you find our performance is stagnant. Those are learning curves. Those are learning periods where we must take advantage of those failures and definitely use that to spike our numbers higher in the future. So what I really do is to one, instill in my teams that there are definitely going to be times when things do not look high. What you need to do is to take these learnings and definitely convert them into opportunities. In the future, in the soon to be future, you'll see less of the deep trends. I'm not sure this is possibly what you want to hear, but there are still downtimes till date. But the frequency and the cadence is what really matters. You find that the cadence is a lot slower, and definitely you find fewer mistakes than in the past. So for me, it's all about learning through those trials and definitely converting that into opportunities.
No, I actually love that you said that, because as a new PM and coming from a non-technical background, I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. And so, you kind of get on this high and everything's going well, and then things dip and it's like, wait, am I really supposed to be here? Were they high because of my contributions, and did I actually help, or did it accidentally happen? Right. So I'm glad that you said that, and thank you for saying it. You have a really cool trajectory into product management. How did you get into product?
I got into products when I joined Huawei Technologies right out of my career. But I was a software engineer right out of school. Right out of college, I was really excited about software development. In fact, I was a 2-time founder. I'm sure I'd never spoken about that, but 2 times failed founder. I built an edtech startup in 2007 while I was still in college. That failed. I built a website development startup, which made a couple of $1,000 and also failed as well. And of course, once a product manager is always a product manager, and I still wanted to build. So I got my first job as a software engineer, and I knew that I wanted to expand my scope. And I was approached by my manager to say, hey, I think you really do see things from end to end, from concept to launch. And I really do think you should take up a particular role. So luckily, in the region I was then, Nigeria, this was when a lot of telcos were looking to drive a lot of revenue through value-added services. Voice revenue was deepened, and I was the first product manager for Premier Product Manager to drive a lot of value-added services. So this was how I got my first product role.
That's awesome. And actually, speaking of your 2 times founder, I think I saw that you had like 200 users for your edtech in the first 4 months. Like, talk about that growth. Yes. Like, can you, I think a lot of PMs, I think myself included, I want to become a PM, and so I can learn how to ship products and deal with stakeholders and all that. But at the end of the day, I would love to become a founder, similar to what you've done.
Definitely.
What did you learn?
First thing I learned, first I identified the biggest problem then, which was people looking to actually learn a way outside of college. There was a healthy number of students who were not just cut out for school, but they wanted to go into their career even while still in college. So I built an edtech product to help them traverse different disciplines. So this was into networking, Oracle, and Microsoft at the time, and I taught them towards certification parts. I had other co-founders as well, but the biggest lesson here was, and the reason why I failed was we failed to continue our product market fit exercise. We found our product market fit at the start, but customer discovery was stagnant. So our customers fail to evolve. And this is one thing that product managers must always know, that your customers might dance with you today, but they might not dance with you tomorrow. The gap is that you must always continue to understand their new problems, how their problems evolve, and how you plug into those solutions for job to be done. So this was the biggest lesson that I got on from as a first-time founder.
Nice. Yeah, I think we were kind of going back and forth on Twitter when I compared product management to being a barber back in the day when I was a barber. And it's funny how quickly your clients will leave you if you don't continue to evolve. Yeah. Maybe can you summarize just the idea of product market fit for new PMs? If you're speaking to a new or aspiring PM, how do you define product market fit and how do you find it?
I define product market fit almost the same way I define product management as the ability to identify the right market and serve it with the right product. And of course, find the right strategy to continue to plug that relationship. And I also define product market fit as that period when your users are desperate to use your service. Your users are desperate to use your product. And in spite of the fact that there are alternatives, they definitely want you. This way, you know that you found product market fit. This is how I really define it.
Nice. And then you talked about one of the challenges that you had, that you didn't continue to evolve your product market fit. So like,
yes,
that's one of my challenges. One of my challenges as a PM is I ship a feature and then I'm on to working on the next feature, but it's kind of hard to keep track of the other features that you've built. So how do you continue to evolve your product and making sure that you're keeping track of when your customers might be looking for more from you?
Yes, so there's a lot to unpack here, but top line is prioritization. One of the core tenets of product management is prioritization. Product managers must be ruthless in prioritization. Of course, we are the kings of saying no. And this is one of the biggest ways that you could definitely decide what and when to build for your users or for your customers. And like you rightly said, there's so many ideas flying around. There's this feature that you need to ship through this cadence. Your roadmap is constantly being altered. The most important thing, the way to overcome this is figuring out the best way to prioritize per time. And I must say here that a lot of product managers sometimes want to plug in frameworks all of the time. The truth is this: a product org, I've used more than 10 different prioritization frameworks in the past quarter. You must understand that prioritization works on a case-by-case basis. On an understanding basis. So today, rice model could work. Moscow model could work tomorrow. It is not one size fits all. So it's really important to stay nimble and always on top of the market trends. To close this, you must understand that there's a part called the product and there's a part called the market. If there is no balance in each of the two, there's definitely going to be a failure in that particular product.
Yeah, that's such a good comparison. Well, let's maybe change the route here. What advice do you have for new or aspiring PMs? What would you? Maybe I can rephrase that because you have so much great experience. Yeah. What would you tell yourself 10 years ago when you were making the jump? What would you tell yourself now?
A lot, but I think I'll summarize it to maybe top 5. First is talk to customers all of the time. For new and aspiring product managers, you must be willing to understand customer problems obsessively. I always say that it is one thing to know the problem, and it is another thing to be able to articulate it rightly. If you are able to articulate the problem rightly, then you definitely will have tons of solutions and prioritize the best solution for your customers. So this is the first thing: be obsessed about the customer. Secondly, there is not one silver bullet into getting into product management. All you need to do is definitely show the curiosity, show the high agency, and definitely stay on top of every favorite product and start building how you want it to be built. This way, you're building social proof for yourself and definitely improving your level of curiosity. Third, rather than focus strongly on data, focus a lot more on insights. Insights from data is really, really important and gives you context into the amount of data that you have. If you're a product manager, for example, in e-commerce, Amazon, you could tell that there's tons of data every day. What matters is the insights you draw from it and how you're able to make very fast decisions. Next is you must understand that you are not an authoritarian. You're rather an influencer. It is faster, it is better, it is a lot more profitable to be an influencer rather than an authoritarian. So these are things that I would have told myself as an early product manager.
Nice, man. So many gems there. Speaking of gems and advice, you have a phenomenal blog that we've talked about. Everybody listening needs to go check out his Substack, and I will tag it in the YouTube comments and all the details. But seriously, it's like a textbook on product management. I pick out a few of the articles. I wish I could talk about all of them, but I'd love to talk about three of them if you have time. So you have this great article on the 5 ways to navigate roadblocks as a new PM. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit and what inspired you to write that and maybe summarize the article?
Okay. One of the reasons, one thing that inspired me to write that article is I meet with a couple of PMs monthly as mentees to help uncover and expose roadblocks and help them to overcome them at work. So this was one of the questions that I was asked by one of my mentees about problems that they face at work and how product management is being described as glamorous, and I really do need to write on it. So this was the inspiration. And diving deep into that, I realized that a lot of product managers are getting hired by startups these days, where the founder is really excited about the product. So it is really important to note that starting a job, a product role, your founder might be really dictating the roadmap. So it is really important at that point to find and strike a balance between that dictated roadmap and, of course, gradually introduce your own ideas into the pipeline as the company grows. This helps to drive a lot of trust, show reliability, and, of course, increase the level of agency on your side. Secondly, you find that in a lot of firms, performance is measured by velocity, which is not necessarily so. Performance should be measured by the value, by the valuable features shaped at the end of the day. So as much as that happens, my advice would be for you to, of course, follow the rules in the interim, but while also being focused on on incremental work, because starting a role, this is your first 60 days, this is the best you could possibly do. The quick wins, and of course, focus on small incremental wins or incremental improvements as well. Thirdly, I think I spoke about wanting a 2 to 3 year roadmap. This is one question I get asked all of the time. My founder or my CPO wants a 3-year roadmap. What do I do? Yes. That's sometimes called a public roadmap in a lot of orgs. It is important, of course, to keep that roadmap, especially to leadership. And of course, what you need to do is to build a team roadmap, right? Where your team understands all of the initiatives, the problems, and continue to find a balance. So if you notice, these top 3 common PM problems, I've spoken about balance. You find that you ask product managers some questions and they tell you it depends. This is a very common answer amongst product managers. And this is because there's a lot of ambiguity, and it is really important to find a balance as well for issues like this. Of course, you find in some orgs, product managers are not allowed to talk to customers. Customer support, of course, you find that they're very jealous, especially in B2B. They're very jealous and protect their customers. What you need to do is to activate your accounts team, definitely show them how to interview customers and build on that funnel. And lastly, you find that product managers complain that they are not able to do all of the work, all of the PM work, all of the PMing, like I like to call it, like desire. The best thing is to place all of this into buckets, right? Find your strengths and definitely delegate the rest. You cannot do everything now as a PM leader. What you need to do is identify, for example, for me, I love sitting through design sprints and customer interviews. I still find a way to sit through those. Of course, sometimes I still get summaries, but I still sit through some as well, just to, of course, for continuous learning. But speaking generally, bucket everything into possibly 3 buckets, delegate the bottom 2, and keep the top 1 as a product manager. Man,
I wish I had that article when I started because I needed that. Coming from a sales background and really coming from a management background, that was one of velocity, the idea of velocity and having a metric there. Yeah. I really clinged to velocity and I was attached to it, right? Because sales and management, you're always looking at productivity, how fast, how many dollars per hour, labor per hours, all that kind of stuff. And so the one that was most relevant to me was, okay, what's our velocity? How many hours are we using this sprint? Let's calculate velocity per hour or whatever, or hours per point. So And that did not work. That was the wrong attitude to take, right? That caused me to not follow up on the features or follow up on, I was just so focused on celebrating the wins. We're getting our velocity up there, boom, 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 boom. But then I have features that I shipped, and I could have been more analytical, or I could have followed the product, the life cycle of it.
Yes.
What advice, like, how do you coach product managers who are too attached? Well, one, have you had any PMs attached to velocity like I was? And what would you tell me?
Awesome question. And this travels across board. You find on engineering orgs as well. In case you find an engineer that's watching this blog, we find some engineers who are also attached to code. We find product managers who are attached to velocity. The bridge there is understanding the customer problem and the goal, and aligning this with the goal. As much as this is very tightly done, bringing in the customer feedback loop in as the third wheeler, you find that sometimes you zoom out and then you understand timing, you understand placement, you understand positioning, and then you definitely would find a better cadence. So this would be an advice that I'll give to you who at some point in the past was really concerned about velocity. And so it's all about the positioning, the timing, and of course the value at a particular point in time. Imagine when research in motion was there. I'm sure a lot of things were happening velocity-wise, and they realized that they were running nowhere fast. Of course, they were distracted. And so timing and positioning are really, really important in this particular trend. Yeah.
No, you're making light bulbs go off in my head, man, and I really appreciate it. The next article that you wrote was the hacking the backlog prioritization, and this one especially, I would just really flag this for any new PMs. Like, you give like super specific tactical advice in hacking the backlog. Can you talk a little bit about that article?
Yeah, I think backlogs are really. I'm looking for the word right now, are really prominent, of course, in our daily lives as product managers. And it is really, and most times they are really factors that decide the success of a particular feature or product or innovation or concept at a particular time. So it's really important, first off, to understand if you have an excellent backlog or not. When you have a great backlog, trust me, all your team members will definitely have clarity of that particular product. You find a lot of focus. You find that everyone is aligned and on the same page. And most importantly, you find less tech debts. Of course, we have a lot of big tech companies right now. You can easily tell from outside that there's a lot of tech debt happening here for definitely different reasons. But in the real sense, when you have an excellent backlog, you see less tech debts. And of course, there are ways you can definitely understand if your backlog, or take your backlog from 0 to better. And like I said, then you could measure it by 0, non-relevant, 1, hit or miss, 2, helpful, and 3, perfect. But this is ways to get better from the deep is 1, understand and reestablish the goal, the product differentiator, and of course the user pain points. This definitely gets everyone realigned again. It is never too late to realign your backlog, and of course realign your teams on this. Now, based on this product strategy, while you have the product strategy on one side, now list out all of the thematic features and tasks. This is really important for alignment and synchronization, even with multifunctional teams. Now I'm speaking to finance, legal, pre-sales in the case of B2B. This helps everyone on the same page, and of course travels outside of your team. So you definitely also want to design a scoring system. Like I said earlier, you could definitely not decide to use mine, but I really think you should, as this helps you, as this guides you along the trajectory. There will definitely be drops when someone on the team drops the ball, but what's important is they have something to refer to as a green part, right? To show that your backlog is doing awesome. Next and lastly, you need to establish the features and tasks to be focused on per time. I recommend quarterly, but sometimes you find in some fast-paced teams, I could recommend fortnightly. So everything that should be done in the next fortnight should be very, very clear. And of course, this way you find a very nimble, safe, and fast backlog where you definitely want to iterate faster in chunks to definitely learn faster and improve your products generally. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, that absolutely makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Okay, so we talked about we talked about the roadblocks, we've talked about backlog prioritization, hacking the backlog. And now I think possibly most importantly, the product strategy. You have a phenomenal step-by-step guide to, you have a step-by-step guide to product strategy, where in it, it's a phenomenal article again, but in it you have one line that really caught my attention. This speaks to how the product vision is the core of your strategy. To me, that's easy say, hard do, right? So can you help me understand product vision, coming up with it, defining it, and sharing, and like, how do you make the product vision your North? How do you find out what it is and then make it your North Star?
Finding the product vision, of course, it stems strongly from understanding clearly what the problem is. Like I said earlier, a lot of times you find that a lot of product managers do not understand the problem scope. They is very clear. And of course, this drives the vision. This gives you a why. I'm sure a lot of product managers listening must have heard, you need to understand the why, the why, the why. Yes, it is very important. The why drives your vision. Even when there are challenges along the way, this will definitely help you to find ways around it or pivot, but your vision still remains the same. So I really think, like I said in that article, there are about 5 guiding principles, of course, for a good product strategy. The first is the market. And of course, this somehow ties back to the product market fit. You need to tighten a little bit of the target market and needs. Sometimes your customers, like I said, are always evolving. You need to now segment them, right? And of course, build and bucket them into different business needs, connecting your overall strategy, and of course, how your products now fits into all of these buckets. I really do not want to sound too scientific, but this is, I think, the best way that I could really explain it. Like, put them into buckets. Your product is one, but identify how your product serves different markets. Then prioritize the highest growth one and continue to understand how that plugs in into your roadmap. And of course, you need to focus on delivery. How would you build and deliver the product? This majorly rests on your team to figure out, but you need to make it very clear that delivery is really important. And of course, how do you measure that? How do you measure that you have a fantastic product strategy? Is definitely ties back to your mission. Once your mission is achieved, then you know that you're definitely looking at the right success metrics. So this is really how I think about product strategy in very simple terms.
I love it, man. I love it. That's so helpful. Another one of those, I wish I would have just had your whole blog when I was trying to get into product management, because a lot of the problems and challenges I ran into, again, as you're talking, man, like literally light bulbs are just going off in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go talk about this tomorrow and this next week, and I can't wait. It's what you're saying is so important. Speaking of blogs, I always ask people what books they would recommend other product managers read. I've had this aha moment just talking to you. It's like, and this is my take. My take is, don't read a book. Go find 5 product managers that you know and respect and read their newsletters, because between you and a few other ones on Twitter that I bumped into, I'm like, there's the book right there. But what books would you recommend? What books or newsletters would you recommend for PMs?
I'll gladly recommend books that I'm currently reading because I read a lot of books over and over again. But 2 top books stand out to me, and it's definitely not cracking the PM interview. Those are fantastic books, but I'm sure you've heard this over and over and over again. So for the sake of freshness, I recommend 0 to 1. This is a book written by Blake Masters, and it really teaches you about startup product strategy. And of course, you might be working in big tech, but sometimes you find that your product org runs like a startup. So this particular book will drive and teach you, give you a lot of insights into product strategy. The next one is Insanely Simple by Ken Siegel. This particular one is about how Apple kept everything really simple with very clear, simple approaches. There are a lot of stories at Apple there. So I'm sure once you pick up this particular book, you definitely would not want to drop it. These two books, I believe, are very important for product managers. First, to understand strategy and establish their knowledge of it. And secondly, to understand how to simplify everything and how simple is a lot more difficult than complex. So that tells you how complex is the easy way out, but simple gives and ensures rigorous and critical thinking to help us develop and innovate very easy to use, desirable, elegant products for our customers.
And I'm going to check out both of those. I can't wait. Before we end this, what question didn't I ask you? What did you want to talk about? What knowledge do you think you want to share with the community that we didn't talk about yet?
Talking about knowledge, I think what I really want to see is a lot more closely knit product management communities because product management is not taught these days in colleges, and I'm using this medium to reach out to possibly any faculty, any college, to start incorporating product management as elements of computer science students, definitely. So this is something that I would really like to see, and I'm really grateful for your blog, for your YouTube page. I really think this will crystallize and help a lot of other aspiring product managers find their feet. Some aspiring product managers might be shy or to reach out to new people. Always connect. It is very important. I tell you, product managers are one of the nicest people ever. You need to tell them of how we just reached out to each other, set up the podcast in less than 2 minutes, and we definitely caught on. So network as wide as possible. You could definitely have peer mentors and people who have gone ahead of you, but never always have peer mentors. People who have definitely done these things, but are around your scope. So this is what I really want to share.
That's awesome. And speaking of networking, how can people get a hold of you?
I'm really active on Twitter. You just search for Salem Smith. Very active on LinkedIn as well. Check for Salem Smith. Shoot me a message, and I'm definitely happy to reach out.
Well, man, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with the community tonight, and myself especially. You've definitely helped me overcome some obstacles just in this short conversation. So thanks for joining me, and have a good night.
Sure. Thank you very much, Brennan, for this platform. You're doing fantastic, and we're all cheering you on.
Awesome. Thanks, man.